There's a city in China that almost no one has heard of. Not Beijing, the imperial capital, nor Xi'an, home to the terracotta warriors, but a city that Marco Polo, the famous Venetian explorer, once called one of the greatest ports in the world. A city that once connected China to the world through something called the Maritime Silk Road. That city was called Quanzhou, and it still exists today, though its fame on the world stage has faded somewhat. Located on the southeastern coast of China's Fujian province, Quanzhou was once the eastern terminus of the Maritime Silk Road, the ocean-going counterpart to the more well-known Overland Silk Road that once connected China to Europe through Central Asia. At its peak in the Song and Yuan dynasties, Quanzhou was one of the world's greatest ports, rivaling Venice and Alexandria in wealth and influence. Merchants from across Asia, the Middle East, and Africa filled its harbours. Mosques, temples, and churches stood side by side. Today, Venice, Marco Polo's home, draws 30 million tourists a year. Quanzhou, most people outside China have never even heard of it. Modern Quanzhou is a prosperous city with a metropolitan population of about 2 million people, but today it's overshadowed by China's more vibrant metropolises. So what made Quanzhou one of the world's greatest ports almost 1,000 years ago? How was it connected to Venice? And why did it fade into obscurity while Venice became legendary? Stay connected if you want to find out more, and please like this video and subscribe to the channel if you want to discover more curious connections around the world. In 1292, Marco Polo departed from Quanzhou on his long journey home to Venice. He had spent years travelling through China, and Quanzhou, which was also known as Zheton to foreign traders, left a deep impression on him. In his famous travelogue, Marco Polo wrote that Quanzhou handled more trade than any port he'd ever seen. He marvelled at the vast quantities of silk, porcelain, spices, and precious stones that passed through the city. But it was pepper that truly impressed him, the prized spice from India's Malabar coast, worth more than silver at the time. Marco Polo claimed that for one shipload of pepper that goes to Alexandria, there come 100 such to this haven of Zheton. What Marco Polo witnessed was the eastern terminus of the Maritime Silk Road. But to understand this vast trading network, we need to go back to the Tang dynasty in the 7th century. The Overland Silk Road through Central Asia had existed for centuries previously, though over time, maritime trade routes became increasingly important. Ships could carry far more cargo than camel caravans, and ocean routes avoided the bandits and political instability that plagued the overland passages. While Venice controlled trade in the Mediterranean, Quanzhou controlled trade across the Indian Ocean and South China Sea. But these weren't separate systems, they were connected through one of history's most remarkable supply chains. Imagine a piece of Chinese porcelain arriving at Quanzhou's docks. Loaded onto a Chinese junk ship, it would sail south to Malacca, where it might change hands to an Indian merchant. From there, it would cross the Indian Ocean to Calicut, then up to Hormuz on the Persian Gulf. Arab traders would buy it and ship it to Venice. This single piece of porcelain could take 2 years to complete its journey and pass through 20 different merchants, and this happened thousands of times over in countless variations, creating vast wealth at both ends of the route. By the Yuan dynasty, Quanzhou had become China's primary international port. The city was genuinely cosmopolitan. Arab and Persian merchants built mosques, like the Qingjing Mosque, constructed in 1009 AD, which still stands today. Hindu traders brought their temples. Even Nestorian Christians established churches. Multiple languages echoed through Quanzhou's markets. Different religions coexisted. It was in many ways more internationally connected than Venice itself. China's maritime ambitions continued to grow after Marco Polo's departure. In 1405, the Ming dynasty launched the first of 7 massive naval expeditions under Admiral Zheng He. These weren't mere trading voyages. They were demonstrations of Chinese power and diplomatic missions that also facilitated trade. The scale was staggering. Zheng He commanded over 300 ships and 28,000 men. His largest vessels, the treasure ships, were said to measure up to 400 feet long. To put that in perspective, Christopher Columbus's Santa Maria, built nearly a century later, was just 85 feet long. Zheng He's flagship could have carried Columbus's entire ship on its deck. These massive fleets set sail from Nanjing, sailed through Southeast Asia, visited India and the Arabian Peninsula, and reached as far as the east coast of Africa. They brought back exotic goods, established diplomatic relations, and demonstrated that China possessed the most advanced maritime technology in the world. And then suddenly, in 1433, it all stopped. The Ming dynasty abruptly ended Zheng He's expeditions. The reasons were complex: the enormous cost, political factions at court, concerns about foreign influence, and a desire to focus on internal threats from the north rather than maritime expansion. But the effect was clear and devastating. China turned inward. Over the following decades, the Ming government banned private maritime commerce and imposed strict trade restrictions. Foreign merchants left. The cosmopolitan community that had flourished for centuries simply disappeared. By the early 1500s, when Portuguese traders arrived, Quanzhou was no longer the thriving port it had been. Meanwhile, Venice continued to develop, though its maritime dominance eventually passed to other European powers: Portugal, Spain, the Netherlands, Britain. The age of exploration that followed Columbus was in some ways Europe catching up to where China had already been a century earlier. Quanzhou today is a city of 2 million people in Fujian province. It's prosperous and growing, but it's not on most tourist itineraries. For those interested in history, however, Quanzhou offers some remarkable sights. The Quanzhou Maritime Museum houses a Song Dynasty merchant vessel discovered in Quanzhou Bay in 1973, a 24-metre ship over 700 years old. Its watertight compartments and sophisticated construction reveal why Chinese ships dominated Asian trade for centuries. Walking through Quanzhou's old quarters today, you can also still see echoes of its international past. The 1,000-year-old Qingjing Mosque stands as a testament to the Arab merchant community. The Kaiyuan Temple, with its twin stone pagodas and mix of Buddhist and foreign architectural elements, reflects centuries of cultural exchange. In 2021, UNESCO recognized Quanzhou, Emporium of the World in Songyuan, China, as a World Heritage Site, finally giving international recognition to the city's historic significance. Today, China is re-emerging as an economic and trading powerhouse, not through Quanzhou, but through cities like Shanghai and Shenzhen. The goods have also changed, not silk and porcelain, but solar panels and electric cars. Venice, which thrived after Quanzhou faded, eventually faded itself, and now sits frozen in time as a living museum for tourists. Trade routes have evolved, from caravans crossing deserts to ships crossing oceans, to container vessels and digital networks spanning the globe. So the next time you see a Chinese electric car on your city streets, remember that piece of porcelain. Remember Quanzhou, the city that once connected China to Venice across 8,000 miles. From caravans to shipping containers, the routes keep evolving. The question is, what comes next?